Hi, everybody. I'm Kristi Whitfield, the Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development. And today we are talking to Darryl Maxwell from the DC Pro Bono Law Center. Hi, Darryl.
Director, it's great to see you.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well, all things considered. We are talking today about lease negotiations. The DC Pro Bono Law Center is a great resource, and they had an online training recently on lease negotiations. So tell us a little bit. I hear that was very well subscribed, and I want to talk about it. Tell me what you're hearing about lease negotiations these days in a COVID environment.
Oh, sure. So a couple of things. So first of all, you're right, and thanks for asking about it. We did have a particularly good turnout, and I think because people are being careful and staying at home and sheltering in place, they have time to take advantage of resources and online education. We had probably one of our largest turnouts, over probably 145 folks who had, well, we had closer to 200 people sign up, and then maintained a really good number for folks who participated. And we were really happy and worked with a volunteer who has been a long part of the Pro Bono Center's program and are providing assistance to business owners from Blank Rome. His name's Ross Coe. A lot of what we talked about were sort of practical strategies for the DC area, for the city, and then also for the region, thinking about where people actually are in their sort of lease sort of perspective. So we had a lot of folks who were asking questions about, what do I do if I can't pay my, we did it right at the beginning, or I think we did it on April 30th. And so folks had questions about, well, if I can't pay my rent in May, am I going to get evicted? And the answer to that, thankfully, because courts are closed, is no. But folks are looking for more practical sort of questions about, well, what can I do to deal with my landlord? And how can we sort of come to some understanding that I don't have money coming in, or I don't maybe have a lot of savings, and I know you still need to get your rent. And one of the things that we tried to sort of explain was, landlords, though we may demonize them to some degree sometimes, they're also in a really tight spot, just like the tenants are. And so trying to keep an open dialogue and conversation with your landlord about where exactly you are. One of the strategies that's actually worked really well for clients is offering to pay a portion of your rent, maybe not the full rent, but a portion of it. And what number, what percentage is sort of on a case-by-case basis. But it may be the type of olive branch, as opposed to, and for a lot of tenants, they sort of recede into the background, and they don't, they're sort of hiding from mail, they're not returning emails. And that only leads to sort of raising the blood pressure of the landlord, the anxiety of the tenant, and leading to what can be a fairly sort of uncomfortable outcome, or at the very least, a really uncomfortable sort of conversation once you do finally talk. And so trying to keep an open dialogue is really important. One of the things I wanted to mention too is out of that webinar we did on April 30th, we asked for, if folks were interested in getting help with their specific, folks who had participated, if they were interested in getting help with their specific leases, having, understanding some of the terms, understanding what sort of leverage they might have or strategies they may use based on maybe how long they have left in their lease, or how much their rent or how little their rent might be. And so we have been working to serve individual clients, and we've already gotten about 25 requests for lease negotiations, and so we're working through those with volunteers from law firms throughout the city. So that has been in addition to the webinar, I think that's been a value add that the Pro Bono Center has been able to provide. So
Well, I think this is really important. I think that in this time where we have so much uncertainty, I think there is sometimes a propensity to freeze. And so I think the message here is, you have to just bite the bullet, call your landlord, ask for help, say the facts, say, I'm short on cash, I can't pay. Start the conversation or say, I can't pay my full rent and I need help. But I think the other message is, call the DC Pro Bono Law Center and say, can you look at my lease? A lot of people probably haven't looked at their lease since they signed their lease. And there are all sorts of provisions in here. I think we all sign our leases and then we tuck them away, we file them, and there are all sorts of provisions in there. And so the DC Pro Bono Law Center can help you sort of look at your lease and figure out what are the provisions when things get a little dicey and things get tough. And we are hearing that a lot of landlords, when they can, everyone understands that times are tough right now and that we can, maybe work things out. Now, not everyone is, an angel landlord, but we find that a lot of people are being as good and decent and accommodating as they possibly can. And I think that is, better to ask, nothing beats a failure but a try, right? And so we've got to try. So I think we will actually link, with your permission, we'll send a link to that webinar. And so if people want to watch the full thing and get all of that great information, I think access to as much information is power. But if you could say like 2 great takeaways from that webinar, read your lease, ask your landlord, and what are some high level takeaways also from that?
Sure, definitely review your lease. And if you need, and again, like the director has said, if you need somebody to help you with that, you can certainly come to the Pro Bono Center and get some help with that. Another thing you want to make sure to understand is where we are in this pandemic. So, depending on when you're watching this, there may still be a stay-at-home order or not. But for right now, as we record this today, the landlord-tenant court is closed, and there is a hold on evictions. And so, while you may be getting default notices or threatening letters, things like that from your landlord, be armed with the facts that you are not going to be herded out of your space today, tomorrow, possibly not next week. It's going to take a while for those sorts of things to move. So you can be, and again, I am certainly not advising folks to not pay their rent. You are still expected to pay your rent. However, you want to make sure you understand that you have a little bit of flexibility. And again, this adds to your ability to negotiate with your landlord. There's not.
But council passed legislation that restricts people from being evicted. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Exactly. And so they're still working. They were working, I believe that was going to be upheld through May 15th. And I think they're looking at extending that time. Obviously, those are more high-level sort of discussions than I've had, but I know that that's sort of been in the works, and I think the council is still looking to vote on an extension. And so there's a fairly strong likelihood that the district may be closed, and that a lot of these, as opposed to some other jurisdictions outside of DC that may be opening up soon, it looks like we are going to take a more measured approach in how and when we open up as a city, and when businesses are able to sort of go back to working on a more regular basis where they can welcome people in. And because of that, I think we're going to have a little bit more time. And so business owners can be a little bit more flexible. And I think landlords will, and another thing I wanted to make sure to mention too, landlords who have mortgages, for the most part, are getting either mortgage forbearance or having opportunities to do some reworking and renegotiating of their own mortgages. Now, your landlord may or may not be willing to give you that information, but you can now, if they are willing to give that to you, that may be an entry point to say, look, I know the bank you work with is doing this for landlords in this time of crisis. I just want you to sort of help me out, and if that means pushing April, May, June rent to the end of my lease, the same way they're doing with forbearances for mortgages, that may be a strategy that the landlord is willing to sort of hold on to. And so what you always want to make sure to do is present an opportunity and present this sort of leverage point as a means to say, I'm not looking to stiff you.
Do not come in.
I just want you. I'm not looking to stiff you. No problem. I'm not looking to stiff you. I want to pay my rent. I can't do it now. Everybody knows why. If we push it to the end of the lease term, I'm happy to pay it then when things are better, hopefully, and we all hope things will be better at that time.
So I think the important things to take away are that people have resources. And now it's commercial time, because we're going to wrap up. Lease negotiations is not the only thing that the DC Pro Bono Law Center does. You know, you do a lot of other free services. Now, I was a former business owner, and free was, favorite things to get. I hate to give it as a business owner, but I love to get it. And so I want to say that the Pro Bono Law Center, it's in the name. We love that those services are free. Want to say a little bit more about the other kinds of services that you provide for businesses?
Sure, thank you for that. So, and I will make sure to mention now, our resource site is www.lawhelp.org/DC/CED. At that resource site, there are links to webinars, legal alerts, which are updates in the law for business owners and for nonprofit organizations. We have recently done webinars on employment law, particularly during these troubling times, for having to consider folks who may be having to be furloughed, unemployment insurance, things like that. We provide free legal assistance on a regular basis for business owners, and you can find the links to sign up to get help with lease review, questions about trademarks or intellectual property. Again, one of the things that we're going to be talking about quite a bit is the validity of contracts. What's in my contract? Can I enforce it? These people aren't paying me. What can I do? How are there provisions that sort of account for a pandemic? There might not be. And so understanding your insurance carrier, or understanding your insurance, the insurance sort of policy that you might have for your business. Those are all places where the Pro Bono Center can add value. We work with volunteers from around the city, and quite frankly, around the country, providing these kinds of services from big law firms, small law firms, government, lawyers, solo practitioners. And so, again, we provide this sort of information on a regular basis. We do clinics. Now, due to sort of stay-at-home orders, we've been doing clinics via Zoom. We've moved up to about once a week. And so we can serve you as long as we have volunteers who have this type of expertise. We can certainly provide the help.
Wonderful. Well, Darryl, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. And I like to say, DSLBD has an amazing team of talented people who love to help, but we do not have all the answers. And when we don't have the answers, we love to reach out to partners that do. And you are a great resource and partner for the government. And we just love to continue to work with you. And we are honored to be able to, try and work through these things together. When you have great partners like this, it just reminds us that we have, a lot, we've got a steep hill to climb, but we will get to the other side of this pandemic. And when we do, we will be stronger for it. So thanks everybody for watching. I'm Kristi Whitfield, the Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development.